नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद्राधनाथ स्वामी नामने नमः। ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नामने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवं श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम्। ओम तत्सत। Hare Krishna. So I'd like to welcome all the devotees for the Bhagavatam class. We are continuing our discussion on the second canto. We have come to the 9th chapter. Chapter 9 of the second canto is entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. If you recollect in our discussion earlier, the question by Parikshit Maharaj to Shukadev Goswami is being answered. And one of the key questions was about how the body of the living entity is different from the body of the Lord. That was one of the questions. So Brahmaji was created directly by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Brahmaji interacted with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what exactly is the difference? How is that living entity, if he is actually spiritual, what is causing his bondage? How is he becoming bound? So Parikshit Maharaj asked a lot of very interesting questions in the previous chapter, and the answers to these questions, the beginning of the series of answers is being started from this chapter onwards. Of course, a lot of questions have been asked, and practically the rest of the Bhagavad is the answers to these questions. But here in this particular chapter, Shukadev Goswami begins his answers to these questions by describing one of the first interactions of the Lord and the devotee at the beginning of the cosmic manifestation. So he starts by explaining that very beautiful and very special conversation between Lord Brahma and the Supreme Personality of Godhead at the beginning of creation. So it's a very beautiful conversation, a very beautiful episode. Today's chapter, around 40 plus verses, I think 45 or something, if I'm not wrong, 46 to be precise. is actually a very sweet description of the very sweet and special experience of the spiritual realization of the first created living entity, Brahmaji, and how he interacted with the Lord and how he got the very special blessings of the Lord. Very, very sweet episode. And there are many very wonderful and special aspects to it, and we will discuss about that. So that is what this chapter is actually focused on. And there are many beautiful lessons which come out of that conversation, this example, which again emphasize the glories of devotional service and how the Lord becomes purchased by those who actually engage in pure devotional service. That's very sweet. So this chapter begins by Srila Shukadev Goswami starting to answer the question of Parikshit Maharaj as to how the living entity, being spiritual, how come he comes to accept a material body. So Shukadev Goswami begins by trying to describe that actually it is because of the influence of the external energy of the Lord that the living entity, who's actually pure, he comes about to be covered over by the material body. If you remember in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord gives a couple of comparisons of how the body covers the living entity. And one of the explanations given is just like the clothes cover our body, similarly, the soul is clothed over by the material form. Now, it is very interesting, if the material body is different from the soul, then how come the soul accepts such an unnatural form? The answer is that when the living entity, who's actually pure, who's actually spiritual, when he desires to enjoy independent of the Lord, that desire to enjoy independent of the Lord is facilitated by the Lord by creating this material world and giving a material form. And to allow the living entity to experience that unnatural desire of being independent of the Lord, the living entity is given this element of false ego, ahankara, because of which the living entity starts thinking, the word used here is dreaming, that the material body is actually him. That is the beginning of his conditioning. The living entity actually starts thinking that I am this material body, and because of that identification with the material body, the whole conditioning in the material world starts. And this whole conditioning in the material world is characterized by Shukadev Goswami by describing it in two words, very famous words. These are repeated throughout the Vedic scriptures. Two words to describe essentially the mentality of the conditioned living entity. What is that? What are those two words? Anyone? Which describe the characteristic mentality of the conditioned soul?
I and mine.
Yes, thank you. So when a person is covered, when the living entity is covered by the material body and he misidentifies and he tries to enjoy the body under the influence of the three modes of material nature, his whole thinking is clouded by the concept of I meaning as the material body, and mine, which means everything which is related to the material body is mine. So that is the illusion. Janasya mohoyam aham mama iti. Aham and mama. The word aham, as far as the aham refers to the soul, has no problem. But here the aham refers to the material body. And mama refers to those things which are connected to the body. So the soul becomes forgetful of its eternal identity and starts enjoying. It actually becomes forgetful of its true glory. It forgets that it is Sat Chit and Ananda, it forgets that it is beyond time and this material energy and becomes fully engrossed in this concept of I and mine. So that is the answer given in short in the first few verses. And then Shukadev Goswami starts explaining the beautiful interaction between Lord Brahma and the Supreme Personality of Godhead at the beginning of creation. So he has already hinted a little bit about this in his previous in the previous chapters about that interaction, because Brahmaji was explaining to him about how he got the spiritual knowledge at the beginning of creation. So he starts describing like this. He says that the Supreme Lord at the beginning of creation actually showered his full grace on Brahmaji and gave him full transcendental knowledge. So he starts explaining this very, very beautiful process. So he explains by saying that when Brahmaji was created in the beginning of creation, Brahmaji was actually not even aware. He appeared on a lotus flower, but he was not even aware who created him. Because when Brahmaji was born, he just saw the lotus flower, he just saw himself, he had no idea. He was looking all over, all around, but he had no clue who he is, from where he has come, who has created him. And for a long time, he was trying to wonder where I have come from and how I have been created. Please note that when Brahmaji was created, he was not born from a maternal father and mother. He was directly born in a youthful form, a four-headed form, and he was clueless about his origin. So it is explained that when Brahmaji was created, he started looking around, but he could not figure out. So at that time, Brahmaji heard two syllables, ta and pa. Ta and pa, which when you put together, they become tapa. What does tapa mean? Tapa in Sanskrit means austerity, penance. So he heard this and he was trying to wonder, where did I get this sound from? From where am I hearing this sound? And he did not actually understand much, but somehow that word tapa was given, and the understanding of what it means in terms of tapa, what is the kind of tapa that he is expected to do, that knowledge was given to him and revealed to him directly in the heart, directly downloaded. He had no idea where that download happened from. He heard tapa and the file was downloaded with all the instructions for tapa. He's looking around, he's going up, down, left, right, all over the empty, dark space, unable to figure out who has given him the instruction, who else exists beyond him. Very interesting, isn't it? Actually, very scary as well in one sense. Of course, it's not mentioned here. At least I did not see a word where it is said that Brahmaji was scared, but he was quite bewildered. Imagine, I mean, you just suddenly appear somewhere, you have no idea who you are, where you come from, what are you supposed to do. But somehow, because he's such an exalted soul, because he's such an elevated soul, he had faith that yes, there is something special. I have received this instruction from some higher authority, from some great authority. I must follow these instructions and then let us see what will come out. Right? So he had faith. It's also a very wonderful lesson. That initial faith by the disciple is very important. If one always insists that until everything is proven, I will not take to the process of spiritual life, then that's a very unreasonable proposition. Yes. Because unless you practice spiritual life, you cannot achieve spiritual realization, isn't it? You cannot insist that first give me spiritual realization only when I'm convinced that I will practice. Yes, isn't it? Because the process will give the realization. It's not that the realization gives the process. So that initial faith is important. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam susukam kartum. Yes, this process will eventually give direct perception, not just theoretical understanding. Direct perception, yes, it will come. But initial faith is important. So Brahmaji was the first one to practice tapaha. And he performed tapaha not for 1.5 hours like we do our 16 round japa. And it's okay, oh, fine, I'm done. Okay, now another time. No, not like that. It is said Brahmaji did tapaha for 1,000 years continuously. Not earth years, 1,000 years of the Devatas. He controlled his mind and senses and meditated as he was instructed on the transcendent Lord. Not a great deal of description is given about what exactly he was asked to do, but it was definitely a devotional activity where he was asked to be exclusively focused on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this penance is not just some dry tapasya that he performed, actually performed devotional service. See, what does tapa actually mean? Tapa is austerity. What is the meaning of austerity? Austerity means, in very simple words, to accept whatever is favorable for devotional service to the Lord and to reject whatever is unfavorable. Very simple. So he controlled his senses so that he is not distracted by anything which is not related to the devotional service. He focused his consciousness on the Lord. 1,000 celestial years. And the Supreme Lord, seeing this faith, this devotion and dedication of Lord Brahma, was very pleased to reveal himself to Brahmaji. So this is another very important principle in devotional service or in the path of spiritual life, that no living entity can force the Lord to reveal himself. The scriptures say, Nayam Atma Balahinena Labhya, Na Medhayana Bahuna Shrute. It's not just by austerity or by knowledge or by jnana and study of the scriptures that the Lord can be understood. The Lord has to reveal himself after being pleased. The Lord, being infinite, is beyond the grasp of the living entity based on his own strength. He cannot. So the Lord, when he is pleased by the humble service attitude of the devotee, he reveals himself. So Krishna became pleased by the transcendental devotional service, the pure devotional service. And how does the Lord reciprocate? When a living entity with pure love falls out, the Lord reveals himself fully to that devotee. What does it mean to reveal himself fully? Three things are revealed. One is the transcendental form of the Lord, the abode and pastimes of the Lord, and third, the eternal swarupa of that particular jiva in the spiritual world is also revealed. This is very important. That is known as swarupa siddhi. What does that mean? It means that while it is true that each and every living entity is the soul, it's not matter, it's transcendental to matter, there is still something more to be known. Knowing that one is transcendental to matter is jnana, but there is also another special vijnana, vishesha jnana, special knowledge. Yes, you are spiritual, but within the spiritual existence, what is your identity? So it is said, each and every living entity, each and every soul is not just a part and parcel of the Lord, is not just a spark of light. It may appear like that while he's in the material, it's just a spark. But within that spark, in seed form, every living entity has a particular, very sweet and special relationship with the Supreme Personality of God. A very special and very unique relationship. Such a relationship that very, very specific relationship only that Jiva has with the Supreme Lord. No other soul amongst the billions and trillions and zillions and quadrillions, the unlimited Jivas which are manifest, nobody else has that exact specific relationship. Exact. Of course, in a similar rasa, there may be unlimited living entities, but that exact relationship. Each and every one of us has a unique relationship. And within that relationship, there's a particular form that the soul has, a spiritual form. There's a specific relationship that they have with the Lord. There's a specific seva that they have. There's a specific dress, a specific set of qualities, a specific service. Actually, technically, it is known as the Ekadasha Bhava. There are 11 aspects of that relationship. So spiritual realization begins by realizing that one is the soul and not the body. But spiritual realization fructifies fully when that relationship of the Jiva with the Supreme Lord is manifest. That is considered the full blossoming of the lotus of the consciousness of the Jiva, the soul. That state is known as Swarupa Siddhi. And that is the ultimate desirable goal for the living entity. Not just becoming free from the cycle of birth and death. Scriptures say that becoming free from the cycle of birth and death is just the beginning, not the end. It's the beginning of spiritual life. Basically, it's like, you get being free from birth and death is that you just got visa to go to the spiritual world. The door is opened, you're allowed in. You can say bye-bye to the material world. Finally, you're free from birth, old age, disease, death, free from this material identity, and you are allowed entry. But after you enter, what are you going to do? The objective of entering into the spiritual world is to associate eternally with the Lord. And for that, you need a spiritual form, you need a relationship, you need a service, so that you can experience wonderful, beautiful ras, transcendental humor, that experience with the Supreme Personality of God. So that becomes manifest only when the living entity takes to the process of devotional service. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabuno Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karode. When the living entity takes to the process of devotional service, then when the Lord is pleased and he gives his full blessings, the full blessings of Guru and Krishna, that eternal form of the living entity is manifest. Of course, in the case of Brahma, the Guru and the Lord are the same because there was no other Guru. He is Swayambhu. He is the first living entity. He does not have any other Guru. The Lord himself was the Guru. The Lord himself initiated him by giving him spiritual instructions. And the Lord actually gave him a mantra also, which in our Brahma Sampradaya, that mantra is coming down. The mantra that Brahmaji received from Krishna, on which he meditated to get this spiritual realization. The same mantra I have also received directly coming from Brahmaji's parampara. And all those who take initiation in this parampara, they'll get that mantra. Because that mantra gives one the full realization of one's spiritual form in Goloka Vrindavan. That mantra was given. So these are very secret, confidential, powerful mantras. Of course, ultimately the holy name is the most important, that is true. But that process of realization is greatly assisted by the mantras which are given in the parampara. So Brahmaji, by the blessings of the Lord, achieved that Swarupa Siddhi. He actually, first step, he saw the transcendental form of the Lord. And not only did he see the form, but along with the form, he saw the abode of the Lord. He actually got direct darshan of the Vaikuntha realm. Correct? So you enter from immigration, first you are at the airport, then you come, then you see the full city. Houses, stadiums, parks, so many beautiful facilities. So he was actually able to see. Actually, he had not actually entered Vaikuntha because he was just manifested, but he was given that vision to peep into Vaikuntha by virtue of his extraordinary devotional service. So what did he see? So the beautiful description of the Vaikuntha planets is given in this chapter. So I'm going to briefly describe. The first thing he realized that the spiritual planets of Vaikuntha are beyond the influence of the material energy. There is no Rajogun, Tamogun. There is no influence of the material energy at all. The spiritual planets are situated transcendentally. And there is no influence of material time. Time factor, kala, is present only in the material realm. In the spiritual realm, material time doesn't exist. What does material time mean? Time or kala in this material world has an effect of decay and change and destruction. Vyaya. But the spiritual world is avyaya. Which means everything is eternally fresh, without decay, without change. So in that sense, time is absent. And he saw the beautiful nature of the transcendental world. The transcendental world, which is so beautiful, so attractive that it is worshipable by all living entities. The Devatas as well as the demons. And there in the spiritual world of Vaikuntha, what to speak of the Lord, even the residents of the spiritual world are all having spiritual bodies. And especially in the Vaikuntha planet, it is said that the living entities in the Vaikuntha, the perfected associates of the Lord, their bodies are very similar to the transcendental form of the Lord. Their bodies also have a complexion, sky bluish, like the complexion of the Lord. The eyes of the living entities there are also lotus-like. They are also dressed in beautiful yellowish garments. And their bodily features are also very attractive. Their forms are extremely beautiful, like young boys, young men. They also all have 4 hands, nicely decorated with beautiful ornaments, pearls, necklaces, and beautiful lockets hanging around their neck. They're extremely effulgent. These are all the Vishnu Dutas, because practically all the residents of the Vaikuntha planets are like this. In fact, there are certain episodes in the scriptures where sometimes when the Vishnu Dutas, the Vaikuntha Dutas appear in front of some living entity, there's one episode, I'm trying to recollect which pastime it is. The living entity got bewildered. He thought that this is the Lord, and he started offering obeisance. Oh Lord, this, and then the Vishnu had to tell, no, 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 I am not Vishnu. I'm a Duta from the Vaikuntha world. I look like the Lord, but I'm not the Lord. So the scriptures say, and it is described actually here, that while the residents of Vaikuntha look very much like the Lord, because they also have a four-armed form, they are also decorated very beautifully. They are also having nice, beautiful earrings and garlands with beautiful diamonds and corals decorating. There are certain characteristics which are different. So it is said that the Lord of Vaikuntha has certain characteristics which are special only to him. And what are those? It is said that first he has the Kaustubha Mani on his chest, and also on the chest of the Lord there is the mark of Shrivatsa. Shrivatsa is like a white or a silver colored line on the chest of the Lord. And that line, sometimes it is also described in the scriptures as like a white hair, a silvery hair on the Lord's chest. It is said, and that particular mark is actually Shrivatsa. It is actually representing the residence of Lakshmi Devi on his chest. And the Lord there is always being served by Lakshmi Devi. And of course, the Lord's beauty is even more exquisite than the other Vaikuntavasis. It's clearly seen as Satampati, the Lord of all the devotees of Vaikuntha. But if you were to see any of the Vaikuntha Dutas anywhere in this world, you would easily be deluded to think that, oh, here is the Lord himself. So there are pastimes where the Vishnu Dutas have to explain, no, 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 I am not the Lord. I am the servant of the Lord. So these Vaikuntha Vasis are so opulent, so wonderful. They have the Sarupya Siddhi. Sarupya Siddhi means they have a form almost exactly like the Lord. And they have beautiful palaces. Many of the Vaikuntha Vasis have a spouse. They have a wife who's also eternally residing there on the Vaikuntha planet. It is said that the spouses of the Vaikuntha Vasis are also extraordinarily beautiful. And they have beautiful palatial homes, and they are also having special airplanes, Vaikuntha Airlines. Each of them have their airplanes, and they're sitting on those airplanes and roaming around Vaikuntha. So huge and unlimited. And as they are roaming around, they are singing beautiful songs. What kind of songs? Songs of the glories of the Lord. And it looks so beautiful, the scriptures describe, because the Vaikuntha Vasis, the male forms there, the four-armed male forms, they look beautiful like the rain clouds, blackish, bluish rain clouds. And their spouses, who look extremely beautiful with their celestial complexion, they look like lightning. So when lightning is there, along with the beautiful blackish cloud, it looks extremely beautiful. This is how the Bhagavad describes. So if you want to roam around with your spouse without birth, old age, disease, and death in Vaikuntha, nicely dressed in beautiful transcendental ornaments, then rather than going to Switzerland or US or any other place in this world, you should aim for Vaikuntha. So Vaikuntha has the best of everything. But there, everybody is singing the glories of the Lord. But who's the most active servant of the Lord in Vaikuntha? It is Lakshmi Devi. Lakshmi Devi is always engaged in serving the Lord's lotus feet. She is rendering personal service to the Lord, even though in Vaikuntha there are so many servants of the Lord. But all the servants are attached to one thing. And what is that? All are attached to serving the Lord. Each devotee, they do not think that their greatest wealth is a palace or an airplane or golden ornaments. That is not what they are excited about. Each devotee's most attached to his seva to the Lord, his devotion to the Lord. And the most devoted, obviously, is the Lord's consort himself. Lakshmi Devi is so attached to serving. It is described, not here, it was described in one of the earlier chapters, but I will anyway recall. Lakshmi Devi, who's residing in the most beautiful palace where the Lord himself is residing, Lord Narayan. It is said that even though it is a fully transcendental palace, and even though there is no material dirt or any other thing, Lakshmi Devi, just to attract the grace of the Lord, she takes some cloth, of course, the transcendental cloth, some kind of a duster of Vaikuntha, and she's wiping the walls and the floors of the palace in Vaikuntha. Quite interesting, isn't it? Like a very simple lady who's taking care of the home. She's dusting, she's brooming a bit here and there. Why? Does Vaikuntha need cleaning? Maybe some of you will be worried, oh, even after I go there, I need a maid clean the house. So no need to worry, nothing like that. Lakshmi Devi is not doing because of that. Why is she doing? Why is she dusting in Vaikuntha? She's dusting in Vaikuntha not because there is dust, but the wealth of the lives of the devotees is the seva that they have to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So by performing this seva, the Lord gets attracted to the service attitude of the devotee. So Lakshmi Devi is doing this just to attract the attention of the Lord and to get his grace. Very interesting. All the devotees are rendering service just to attract a glance, a loving glance of appreciation. So in the spiritual worlds, this devotion is not just a sentiment. All this is practical seva to the Lord. That's why Prabhupada would not translate bhakti as devotion. He would always say devotional service. That is seva. Even Lakshmi Devi is practically doing service. Yes. Even in Dwarka, where Krishna would be served by so many servants, but the queens would themselves be engaged in actively serving Krishna. They would serve him his meals. Personally, they would serve. Personally, they would be fanning the Lord, even though there are so many servants. Because that is the wealth of the life of the devotees. And the Lord is always very favorably disposed towards the devotees who are always serving. There are so many devotees. Of course, in Vaikuntha, the foremost of the devotees, there are 4 who are his immediate associates. Their names are mentioned as Nanda, Sunanda, Prabala, and Arhana. In Vaikuntha, these 4 are the immediate associates of the Lord and very, very dear to him. And the Lord is obviously very, very, always a very beautiful smile. The smile of the Lord is so enchanting. Even if one gets one glimpse, immediately, because the Lord is Hari, he will steal away the heart of the living entity. And also the Lord is wearing beautiful shark-shaped earrings, a very beautiful helmet. And the Lord is always surrounded by his various energies. It is said when Brahmaji saw this, all this vision is being seen by Brahmaji. And when Brahmaji saw, he saw that not only is the Lord of the spiritual world, he is also the master of his different energies. The various constituents which are comprising the 25 elements of the material manifestation as well, which are described in this chapter as the 4, the 16, the 5, and the 6. 6 opulences that the Lord has. Bhagavan, wealth, intelligence, etc. And then the 25 elements. So those 25 elements are basically the ones which are mentioned in the Sankhya, the senses, the 5 Panchamahabhutas, the 5 Indriyas, the 5 Tanmatras, etc. So I'm not going to go into the technical analysis. We have already discussed that earlier. The Lord is seen there being served by all these energies. So Brahmaji, when he saw this beautiful vision, His heart was overwhelmed with joy. He was full of ecstasy because this is what the soul is always longing for. The soul is longing for this moment when he will factually realize his spiritual position. He will see the Lord face to face and get the opportunity to engage in the transcendental loving service. That is the complete fulfillment of the desire of the Jiva. The eyes of Brahmaji. Of course, Brahmaji is still in his material body because he's just born. He's not actually been given entry into the spiritual world, but he's been given a glimpse because he's being given a full realization. Tears are flowing from the eyes of Brahma. And he poured down in front of the Lord and he understood that this is the supreme perfection that he has been granted. And the Lord was so kind when he saw Brahmaji very humbly surrendering to him. He was very satisfied. And the Lord was very affectionate to Brahmaji. It is said that the Lord came very close to Brahmaji. He came face to face with Brahmaji. To the extent, it is said, Lord actually held the hands of Brahma and shook his hands. So the first shake hand was done between the Lord and Brahma. Actually shook hands, it is mentioned. He shook hands with Brahma. Amazing, isn't it? He didn't just give him darshan. He actually held his hands and shook. I don't know how exactly he did a shake hand, probably not like the way we do. Probably must have held both his hands and, very affectionate way he held the hands of Brahma. And smiling very beautifully, the Lord started speaking to him as he was holding him personally. Can you imagine? Transcendental Lord is giving him darshan and holding his hand. So amazing. So the Lord started speaking to Brahma and he said, "Oh Brahma, I have already given you the knowledge of the 4 Vedas. They have been revealed to you. And I am very pleased by the devotional service, the tapa that you have performed." And that tapa was actually of the nature of devotion. And with this tapa, I have also given you all the knowledge and capability needed for the purpose of creation. Because that is the reason why you have been manifested. And all this understanding that you have got, understand that you can perceive all this because of your devotional service. I cannot be understood by any other process, neither by jnana or yoga. Without taking shelter of bhakti, nobody can attain this kind of realization. So I wish you good luck. So the first good luck, best wishes was also given by, so this tradition is very long. Good luck, shake hands, started from Lord Narayan to Lord Brahma. So he said, I wish you good luck. I have given you all the knowledge. I don't know whether it was a thumbs up or whatever. Now you do your job of creation nicely. And I'm so pleased with you, Brahmaji. Please ask from me. I am Varadaraj. I am the giver of all benediction. What is it that you want? Please ask. Actually, I have ultimately given you already that supreme perfection, because ultimately the highest ask is to get this vision, and not just vision, the vision with the realization. I've already revealed my form to you. I've already revealed your spiritual nature, given you Swarup Siddhi. I've revealed the transcendental dham of what you will be attaining after you complete your lifetime as Brahma, how you will attain the spiritual world. And I have also given you this realization of your nature and your seva. So it is said, even though it is not very explicitly described here in the verses, the Acharyas explain the Lord reason for shaking hand with Brahma. There's another special reason why he did a shake hand. It is said that our Brahmaji, his Swarupa Siddhi, his eternal position, his rasa with the Lord is that of a friend. One can have a relationship with the Lord in one of the 5 primary rasas. Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya or Madhurya. Shanta means neutral, awe and reverence. Dasya, being a servant of the Lord. Sakhya, being a friend of the Lord. Vatsalya, being a parent of the Lord. Or Madhurya, being a spouse or a lover, beloved of the Supreme Lord. So Brahmaji's relationship was like that of a friend. So the Lord actually interacted with him like a friend, almost like an equal. That's why he came to him and held his hand and shook his hand, just like, when we meet our friends, isn't it? We'll quickly, when we see them, we will hold their hands, like that. So the Acharyas explained like that he held the hands because of this specific nature of the relationship between the eternal relationship that Brahmaji has, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very sweet. And he asked him for this benediction, that I'm pleased with your submissive attitude. This is the qualification to enter Vaikuntha. Being free from material desire, being submissive, always wanting to render your devotional service to me. Brahmaji, please note, now that you have had this realization, I want to reveal one more thing to you, the Lord said. I want to reveal to you that, remember, when you didn't know what was to be done and you were created, you heard those words, tapaha, the original instruction. Actually, it was me only who gave that instruction to you. But I hid from you at that time. I gave you the instruction to attain me, but you are not qualified that time to attain me, but you followed my instructions. You followed the process with faith, and that is why you got the full result of the process. And now here I am revealing myself to you. And understand that is the reason I and the process of devotional service are not different. Anyone who wants to realize me in this way must take up the process of devotional service. Please understand that. And Brahmaji was so happy. And he started glorifying the Lord. Oh Lord, you are so kind, you are so merciful, you are seated in the heart of everybody and you are guiding all living entities. And everything is going on perfectly by your supreme desire. Oh Lord, I pray to you, please fulfill one desire of mine. I want to understand clearly that you are having this spiritual form. I'm seeing you are having a transcendental body, which is not made of matter, which is beyond the material modes. But this whole cosmic manifestation is like your extension. Are you assuming this form? Please explain to me what is the relationship between your transcendental form and this material form, which is manifested and extended like this whole cosmic manifestation, which goes through creation, maintenance, destruction. Isn't that an extension of yourself? Please tell me philosophically about all this. It seems that you're creating this material world just like a spider from himself spins his own web and then eventually destroys it. Please explain to me. I want to understand this subject. And I'm getting the good fortune of understanding it directly from you. It will be very good for me to understand this subject. And you have been so kind to me. You have accepted me as your friend. You have given me almost an equal position. It is so kind of you. You have you have shook my hands like a friend shakes the hand of another. So please, I want one more benediction. Explain this knowledge to me and also give me one more benediction. You have given me such grace, such mercy, such blessings. Yes, I will continue my seva of doing the seva of creation like what you have instructed me. But I am very worried that maybe because of the influence of the material energy, maybe I will become proud. You have treated me almost like an equal. I don't want that I become proud. I don't want that I start thinking that I am the supreme. So Brahmaji is so humble. He's requesting the Lord, oh Lord, please bless me that I will never become proud. Very, very beautiful prayer. Through this very beautiful prayer, Brahmaji is giving us the understanding that what is the greatest fear for the living entity? It is this false pride, which is born out of the false ego. which is the cause of the fall down. Brahmaji is praying, let me never be infected by this desire, because my position is such that it is very easy for other living entities to think I am the Supreme. If you remember, in one of the previous chapter, Narad Muni asked this question to Brahmaji, are you the Supreme? Because I don't see anybody in this creation beyond you. Brahmaji says, no, 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 I am not Supreme. Lord Narayan, you can't see him because he's transcendental. I'm in this material world, so you can see me, but the Lord is transcendental. But he is my boss. He is my creator. He is my Lord. I'm just a secondary creator. He explains this to Narada. So here, Brahmaji is praying to the Lord, let me never be affected. So the Lord, being very kind to him, start saying, yes, I give you my full blessings. All this knowledge that I have explained to you about devotional service is actually very, very confidential part of the scriptures. Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam, Krishna says in the 9th chapter of the Gita, is very, very top secret. The knowledge in the first 6 chapters is still something which everybody can understand. But the 9th chapter, 12th chapter, the knowledge that the Lord is giving about bhakti, about the transcendental nature, is very, very special, and it can only be understood by bhakti. And I have explained this process, so you continue to follow this and make sure that it is propagated. By my blessings, you will actually have complete realization of my spiritual form, my name, form, qualities, activities. I am blessing you. All of that realization you will have. And please understand, since you have asked this question, I am the origin of everything. I exist independent of the creation. Before the creation, only I existed. Even before you came up, before the primary creation was done, I existed independently. Nothing else was there. I am the cause of this material creation. And after full annihilation will happen, Brahmaji, I will only remain. So understand that everything is depending on me. Like Krishna discussed in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvam idam maya protam sutre manigana iva. Even the material energy rests on me. Even the Brahma Jyoti rests on me. I am the ultimate source of everything. I exist independently. When this material manifestation is made through my illusory Maya potency, it is created temporarily. And it exists temporarily and functions temporarily because I enter into it. But please understand, even when I enter into this material world and sustain it, it is not that I become the material world. I still maintain my own independent identity. Very beautiful point. It is not that Krishna is the universe or that the universe is Krishna. Krishna has his own identity, but he permeates and is present everywhere in his various spiritual aspects like Brahman and Paramatma throughout the material existence. But the Lord has already said in the Bhagavad Gita, the whole world is in me, but I am not in the world. I still maintain my own independent existence in the spiritual world. So, please continue with this process that I have given you and continue with this understanding that this material world is connected to me, dependent on me, permeated by me, maintained by me, but still I maintain my separate transcendental existence. And that is why all living entities who want to have perfect realization of me must understand this principle and approach me accordingly. Keep this understanding very clear, and no pride will ever disturb you. Neither now nor when dissolution will happen. You will ultimately attain my lotus feet after you have completed your seva of managing this creation for the purpose, for the whole period of this creation. How long is that period? Only 311 trillion years. Why only? Because that is the period of one breath of Lord Mahavishnu. One breath. Breathe out, breathe in. Finished. 311 trillion years. The entire lifetime of Brahmaji. So this is how the Lord actually blessed. And it is said that after being blessed, the Lord disappeared. That whole vision, the vision of Vaikuntha and the transcendental form, disappeared from the vision of Brahmaji. And Brahmaji was blessed and given all the knowledge and guidance that was necessary for him to carry out his seva of a creator. And he was also installed as the first guru, Swayambhu Guru of this entire cosmic manifestation. He was given full knowledge, not just knowledge of matter, but full knowledge of the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of God. And then Brahmaji goes about doing his task. So Shukdev Goswami starts, of course, Shukdev Goswami is narrating all this to Maharaj Parikshit, and he explains this is how it all happened. And then he also explains that it was Brahmaji who, being instructed like this by the Lord, because the Lord had also instructed him about the secrets of devotional service and told that the highest realization is possible, and he told that this most confidential knowledge should be given to the devotees. He was given this knowledge first. Sorry, he gave this knowledge first to Narada, his son. Because Narada was also very humble and always subservient and ready to follow his father, Brahmaji. Very meek, very humble, very controlled in his senses, having all the right qualities of a disciple. He was qualified, and he was also desirous of having all this knowledge. And he was such a great soul. All this knowledge was given by Brahmaji when Narada inquired. And then from Narad Muni, this knowledge was given to Vyasa. And Vyasadeva expanded this knowledge in the form of Srimad Bhagavad. So what is the Srimad Bhagavad? The Srimad Bhagavad is the expansion of all this knowledge that the Lord gave to Brahmaji at the beginning when nothing else existed other than Lord Brahma, practically in the creation, or no one else existed other than Lord Brahma. From Brahma to Narada, Narada to Vyas, Vyas expands based on the instructions of Narad Muni, and the original desire of Brahmaji, based on the instruction that the Lord had given, it got expanded. And the entire Srimad Bhagavatam was manifested, where the detailed instructions of the name, form, qualities, the 10 characteristics was given. And then, of course, Vyasadeva then eventually taught it to Shukadeva Goswami. And then this is where Shukadeva Goswami is speaking this knowledge to Parikshit Maharaj. Vyasadeva actually compiled this knowledge on the bank of the Saraswati river in Badrikashram. So Shukadeva Goswami ends this chapter by saying that this is how the universe was manifested by the Lord, and Brahmaji was given all this knowledge, and then the Lord manifests this universe and permeates it in its gigantic form while still maintaining his spiritual form in the spiritual world. Now, having explained all this to you, please understand that at the beginning, when the Lord gave knowledge to Brahma, he gave the entire spiritual knowledge to Brahmaji in 4 verses. Those 4 verses have been expanded into the Bhagavad. So now I will especially tell you what are those 4 verses and the brief meaning of those 4 verses. The Chatushloki, I will explain to you in the next chapter. Of course, it doesn't say next chapter. The answer is given in the next chapter, which is chapter number 10, the 10th chapter of the 2nd canto, and that is the last chapter of the 10th canto, where that chapter is entitled Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. So those verses are also very beautiful. That is known as the Chatushloki Bhagavat, and we'll be discussing that in the next week, where those 4 beautiful shlokas, which were directly spoken by the Lord to Brahmaji, they are mentioned, and their their meaning is explained. Those 4 verses summarize the entire spiritual philosophy in a very brief form. Okay, so that is this very beautiful, that brings us to the end of this very beautiful and sweet chapter. So I will stop here, exact 10 o'clock. So I'm opening up the floor for any questions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Couple of questions.
Yes, Amit. Hare Krishna.
So, Prabhuji, you said at the beginning of creation, the Lord revealed his form to Brahmaji, and you also gave him a glimpse into Vaikuntha. And then you went on to say that the Lord, came very close and shook hands with Brahmaji. So this was the original Krishna form of the Lord, or was this the Mahavishnu form?
Okay, the Vaikuntha form is the form of Narayan from Vaikuntha. It is not the Vishnu form, because the 3 Vishnus do not reside in Vaikuntha. They are part of the 3 Purusha avatars, are actually but they are related to the material creation. So when we talk about Lakshmi, Vaikuntha, Chaturbhuj, it is actually the Narayan form of the Lord. But actually, even though it is not described here, very explicitly, actually Brahmaji also got darshan. It is mentioned in other scriptures. He actually got darshan of Krishna and also of Goloka Vrindavan. Because actually, the original Swarup of Brahmaji is actually a friend of Lord Krishna. Because Sakhya Rasa or friendship Rasa is actually not present in the Vaikuntha planet. Vaikuntha, you have only servants, only Dasya and Shanta. And Madhurya only for one person, which is Lakshmi Devi, who is the Lord's consort. So that Sakhya Ras is actually the Ras only which is actually the Rasa which Brahmaji has in the Vaikuntha planets. So he also got a glimpse into Golok Vrindavan, and he also saw Krishna. And that vision that he had of Krishna is actually described in the Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So after that experience, he actually compiles the Brahma Samhita. That is another description. Did I answer your question?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji. So this relationship that Brahmaji has with the Lord in the Sakhya Ras is only the Brahmaji of our universe, or is it all the Brahmajis?
No, our universe. Other Brahmas may have different relationships.
Okay.
So specific to our Brahma.
Okay. And then you said that all of us have an eternal relationship with the Lord that becomes manifest by the grace of the Lord and Guru.
Yeah.
So does this become manifest while we are still here in this material world, or does it happen once you transcend and go to this to Vaikuntha?
It will be revealed. If we achieve perfection while we are still in this body, it will be revealed to us while we are here in this material world, in the material body. So that is possible while we are still here, yes. And ultimately that same form will be, and that seva will be attained when one actually returns back to Godhead. Then one will actually enter the spiritual world with that form and directly engage in that seva.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Welcome, Ali.
Yeah,
Yes, Suraj. Hare Krishna.
I have a couple of questions. Yeah, the first one, initially all living entities were in the spiritual planets. Then due to false ego, like material universe was created, they were sent back and they realized the cycle of birth and death, and they realized we need to go back to Godhead. That means in spiritual planets as well, there is a concept of false ego, because
this question we have discussed multiple times, so I don't want to go into this one again. Yeah, so the living entity, how exactly he comes into the material world, it is very hard for us to conceive.
Yeah, that is you
yes,
have
it is not.
Still, I get some doubt. You have clarified.
You will continue to get doubt, until you go back to the spiritual world. So yeah, I think there are certain things which we cannot fully fathom. It is not so important to try to understand this through material intelligence, because we will not be able to fully fathom uh, how exactly initially the soul gets trapped, because it is not possible to conceive some of these things through the material mind. But the point is that Maya doesn't have its influence in the spiritual world. That is true. There is some way by which the living entity who desires to enjoy independence is somehow Nikatastha Maya. It is said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that as soon as the living entity desires to enjoy independent of the Lord, Maya is nearby, who's not in the spiritual world, who is nearby, somehow allures him. Nikatastha Maya Tara Jhapatiya Dhari. That is how Chaitanya Charitamrita says. Maya, who's nearby quickly, she captures him. How exactly that works, what is the geography, where he is, how it is that, based on our three-dimensional worldview, we may not be able to fathom. So that is, we will not be able to explain or understand that in its true sense.
The second one, someone
Yes.
asked in the last question, what is Linga Sharira? Is it the soul which does not have all the Panchabhutas and the settled body?
No, Linga Sharira is still a material body. Linga Sharira is the Karan, also known as the Karan Sharira. Linga Sharira is the most subtlest covering, where the false ego is also present. Linga Sharira is the Sharira, which is covering the soul in its finest form, and is the reservoir of all the impressions as well as all the karmas and the false ego. So the Linga Sharira has to be cleared before the living entity can actually go beyond the material manifestation. So there's a Linga Sharira, then there's a Sukshma Sharira, and then there's a Sthula Sharira, the three bodies.
Yeah, so I want to know what is the difference between Sthula Sharira, settled body, and Linga Sharira?
Sthula is the gross body.
Yeah.
The subtle body, the subtle body is shaped like the gross body, but is made of subtler elements. Yeah, and also mind and intelligence. The Karan Sharira is the interface between the material world and the spiritual world, in the sense the soul and the body, mainly the false ego, and it is the hook which is connecting the soul to the Sukshma Sharira, and is the reservoir. That is where all the karmas and everything reside.
The last question.
Yeah.
We have this Chaturayugas, and at the end of Kali Yuga, there's an annihilation.
Yeah.
And again, Satya Yuga is going to start. So all the yugas, is it based on like how people behaviors are changing, or because once annihilation completes, maybe I'm not able to put it properly, annihilation is completed, everything is destroyed. Satya Yuga comes, then Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and so on.
Yeah.
So when initially it is set, so people, all the people conscious are in good state, or how is it? I'm not able to understand.
Yeah, the Lord actually annihilates all the miscreants and reestablishes dharma and establishes all saintly people, and creates good population through them, the world. So that is how Satya Yuga is established. Yeah. So there are always some living entities who are auspicious and pure, and who are untouched by the influence of Kali Yuga. So the Lord uses them to establish the next Satya Yuga. So all the miscreants and other elements are destroyed. So the nature of the time energy is that automatically it dwindles. The quality is good, quality is dwindle. So once Satya Yuga is established, over time it comes down. Satya Yuga is 100% dharma, Treta is 75%, Dwapar is 50%, Kali Yuga beginning is 25%, end of Kali Yuga is almost zero. So then the Lord has to come and again push dharma up 100%. by annihilating the miscreants. Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya cha dushkritam. Dharma sanstapana. He does all of that, then again brings it to 100%. And again it dwindles slowly to the influence of time, like that. Then again he will come. So at the end of the Kali Yuga, there is a major cleanup, but throughout the Yuga, whatever small disturbances, relatively small disturbances happen, the Lord takes incarnation and fixes them. So that is the cyclical nature of time in the material world. Material world automatically, the nature of things in this material world is, if you don't attend to it, it deteriorates. That is the nature of Kala.
So the whatever yugas, the deterioration is already set.
Sorry, what is that?
For all the yugas, the deterioration percentage is already set.
Yes. 100,
So,
75, 50, 25.
okay, so at that point of time, people qualities are going to get deteriorated automatically based on the yuga.
Yes. Yes. That is the nature of time. That it will gradually deteriorate the qualities. So that system is there. That whole cyclic process goes on eternally like that.
So Prabhuji, between in the transition from Kali Yuga to Satya Yuga, is there annihilation, or does it happen only at the end of Brahma's life?
No, there are different kinds of annihilation which happen at different times. At the end of Kali Yuga, there is one kind of annihilation. At the end of Manvantar, there is another kind. At the end of Day of Brahma, there is a bigger annihilation. At the end of, so there are many levels of annihilation. So the annihilation at the end of Kali Yuga is of a different nature. It is where Kalki comes and he actually fights and kills and destroys all the sinful elements. It is not a universal kind of a destruction. Yeah? But then at the end of Brahma's day, there is a different kind of destruction where the planets up to certain level are submerged. Other than the few higher planets, everything is submerged under by water. So there are different levels of destruction. So at the end of Kali Yuga, it is more of a destruction of the sinful elements.
Okay, got it. So mini annihilation.
Different levels of annihilation, yes. The very major ones are usually at the end of the day of Brahma and end of the life of Brahma. Of course, end of the life is the whole manifestation is wrapped up and made again into unmanifested energy. But after the end of the day of Brahma, also there is a very major annihilation where most of the living entities, up to some of the higher planets, are submerged and annihilated. And then again, those planets recover when Brahmaji wakes up in his next day and goes about with his, again there is manifestation of life on those planets the next day of Brahma. So there are different levels of annihilation. The Bhagavatam explains some of this in some of the other chapters.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Divya Gaurangi Mataji.
Prabhuji, I just heard in one lecture, 3rd canto, 13th chapter, I think, because it's so fresh in my mind, I remember that at the end of Brahma's day, when the night falls, the fire comes out of the Sankarshana and up to Mahaloka, everything is destroyed, and where the Bhrigu Muni, and then they also try to go up the planets.
Correct.
So all planets about Mahaloka are fine, but below all is destroyed, and then another day starts, Brahma starts creating again, and then the first Manu comes. So
Correct. Yes. So there is a mixture of, there are certain destructions which happen through fire, there are certain annihilations which happen through flooding. So there are various categories. Yes, I think that's correct. I remember that also briefly now that you mentioned. Up to Maharloka, and then some of the sages who are in some of the other planets, and they go up to the higher planets, especially those who are qualified.
So Prabhuji, at the end of Brahma's life, what happens? Is it like the entire universe, even the Brahmlok will be, everything will be finished, right? For a new Brahma to take place?
Everything.
To be born? Everything.
Everything.
Okay.
So the whole cosmic manifestation is dissolved. Actually, nothing. It's wrapped up. It's dissolved into unmanifested energy. It again goes back to Pradhan, where the whole material elements are in unmanifested. So Brahmaji is also, his body is annihilated. So in that case, Brahmaji and the other living entities who are perfected souls, they go back to Godhead. And other living entities, once the material elements are dissolved, they are temporarily absorbed into the body of Mahavishnu. Then in the next creation, again, they are activated and given fresh bodies based on their karma.
Okay, and I have a little always this question in my mind that the first annihilation that Prabhuji was asking about just when the Kali Yuga finishes at the end of Chatur Yuga. So when Kali Yuga will finish at the avatar of Kalki and all, so those jivas that were there on the earth planet, where will they go? Because then if the Satyuga comes, they will be qualified to go there. I don't think so. But do they go to any other parallel planet where the earth is?
No. There is no other parallel planet. It is said that there are certain sages and certain great souls whom the Lord will use to re-establish Satyuga. The names are also given. I don't remember all of them. I don't remember their names right now offhand. But there are certain sages and certain great souls who are currently, it is said that they are residing somewhere and waiting for the right time to come. And the Lord will, after annihilating all the miscreants, He will use those special great souls to re-establish Satya Yuga. So it is not another planet. It is not that the Lord, destroys the whole planet, so to say. He destroys all the miscreants.
So the Kali Yuga Jivas, Prabhuji, where will they go at the end of Kali Yuga? The Jivas the Kali Yuga Jivas,
So they
where
will.
will they go?
No, they will. The world, the material existence continues based on their karma. They will take different bodies, right? They may take bodies in animal form, bird form, or even in human form, depending on their karma.
In Satyuga?
Why not?
Oh, okay.
The cycle continues like that. Of course, they will get a situation based on their karma. Whether it is on this planet or it is on a lower planet, that again depends on their karma.
Okay.
So if they are very sinful, they'll go to hellish planets and suffer accordingly. So time will continue, but everybody will find their own situation and their own bodies based on their karmic situation.
It sounds like when a student in a classroom, if he does good, he moves up or he moves down. So it's like everyone will be reshuffle up and down the planets.
Yeah,
Sounds like that.
No, but the point is that irrespective of how time flows and the cyclical process, at the end, every living entity will get exactly what they deserve. So it is not that, coming Satyuga is like an automatic promotion. So how exactly that works for the living entity, how the Lord decides and gives what forms, it's difficult for us to guess and say. But should understand that nobody gets something without being qualified. So it is not like a free promotion to all living entities. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe some of those sinful living entities get animal life in Satya Yuga. Animal life, even if you're in Satya Yuga, what is the use? Right? You are still in ignorance only. You cannot make any progress. I'm just giving an example. Yeah. So, or they may get birth on certain other planets, maybe lower planets. There are a few possibilities there.
Okay. So these jivas will not be sleeping. They will take birth again.
No. Yeah. They will take birth again.
Okay.
They'll not be sleeping like at the end of creation.
But during Brahma's night, we all sleep, all the jivas.
Yes, something like that. Yes, something like that. Yeah, how exactly we sleep, where our bedroom is, I do not know. But there are some devotees who have done a very detailed analysis on this. And probably you may have attended some of those classes also, the detailed various, there are specific classes on the details of every type of annihilation and creation. But the point is that is not necessarily the most important thing for us to understand. I mean, those are technicalities, fine. That's an interesting piece of information. That's okay. But for us, the king of knowledge is the process of devotional service. Yeah. So yes, there will be some destruction. The whole idea about like, understanding this Kala is to understand that time goes on in a cyclical manner, and the Lord is controlling everything through the agency of time. And there is again, just like there is birth, old age, disease, death at an individual body level. Similarly, for the universe also, it goes through a cyclical process. Satya, Treta, Dwapar, Kali. At one level, and at a higher level, day of Brahma, at even a higher level, creation and destruction of the universe. So, cyclical nature of time is there. So, yeah, so that is generally enough for us to understand. The details, fine. If we know, it's okay. If we don't know, it is not going to impede our spiritual advancement. What is more important for us to understand is our knowledge of the process of devotional service, our relationship with the Lord. These are important. How we are trapped into material energy, how we can be released. This information is, this knowledge is more important for us for liberation.
Yeah, always remembering Krishna is the most important, isn't it? Rather than going into all the other details.
Correct. So other details, if you know, it's wonderful. If you don't know, also, it is not a disqualification.
Actually, the more we know, someone like me gets more confused. So I try to. That's why I keep
some things.
Sometimes.
No, some things we cannot even fully understand at our level because we are at we are in a three-dimensional world. Yeah, we cannot even conceive. So sometimes, it is explained that Lord Brahma is not from a three-dimensional world. His Brahma Loka is a 64-dimension world. Now, how are you going to imagine a 64-dimension world? We cannot even imagine a 4-dimensional world. So some things are, way beyond our ability to comprehend. So yes, we may have some hint, but we will not be able to conceive some of these things. Yeah. So it's like a frog. The example of the frog in the well, right? So we cannot understand beyond a particular point. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. And always the relishable pastimes are the Vrindavan pastimes for me. So I think it's best to stick to that. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so if there is nothing else, then yeah. So Gangotri Mataji was saying 5G and 6G, 64G, yes. Yes. Anyway, for us, we cannot imagine beyond our three-dimensional world. So what to speak about higher dimensions? It's very, very inconceivable. Anyway, so that's why even the material, if I want to speak of the spiritual world, even the material world for us, we cannot conceive. So that's why we should focus on the process of devotional service. And then when we actually achieve spiritual realization, then we can actually realize and understand these things factually. Otherwise, it is very hard through just the material mind and intelligence. Okay, so thank you all very much. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Pujita, I have one question, small question.
Yes.
After another, after Brahma's reign ends again, new Brahma will come, right? The same name will be there, or new name will be there? She's asking.
Brahma is the name of a position. His name may be different, but I don't know who gives him name because he doesn't have parents. So there is some name of our current Brahma. I don't recollect what is the name, but I do not know who gives him that name. Maybe the Lord himself gives the name. So Brahma, Indra, Vayu,
Position, yeah.
Surya, these are all positions. They are not the name of the persons. The name can be different.
Okay.
Like
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Indra's name, current Indra's name is Purandar. Like that. Brahmaji also has a name. I forgot what his name is. Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.